Welcome to Cannabis Business Minds podcast with your host, Simone Samaluka-Radzins. Join me where I'll take you inside the ins and outs of this brand new and exciting business called cannabis. Connect with me on calagia.com and follow us on social media as well. And here's today's show.
But Kate, I'm so happy to get you on Cannabis Business Minds. You know, I remember meeting you at MJ BizCon like back a few years ago and have just followed what you've been doing in the space and been so impressed with your branding, your marketing, your mentality of, you know what, like there is no is negotiable in this space. And, you know, I was so happy to learn. Like I learned this, even though you started your business a year ago. I think I just caught wind to Tarot CBD and was just needing to get you on the show to talk about cannabis business and your jump first into entrepreneurship. So welcome and let's dive in.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and share my long-winded cannabis journey and how I got into the space and, you know, talk about the entrepreneurship journey. So just like a little backstory, like I've been involved in cannabis for a very long time. So I started growing in college in like 2009 and have always kind of taken like a counterculture path. You know, I worked as a sports agent, then I went to Nordstrom Corporate and worked in fashion marketing. And so I've always kind of had these jobs that were a little bit different than, you know, the regular 9 to 5. And so when I was, you know, thinking about leaving Nordstrom, I was still growing cannabis and living like a complete double life and nobody knew what I was up to, and had the opportunity to work at a cannabis tech startup based out of Seattle. And so, you know, really diving into that startup mindset kind of prepared me for my entrepreneur journey. And I was there for 2 years as the VP of Marketing. And in that time, you know, I went to every conference, I met every single person I possibly could. I took every opportunity to just network and speak and be around, you know, all of these people and, you know, understand the energy and learn from them and, you know, their success. And so when I left there, I believe it was 2.5 years ago, I decided to start a cannabis marketing agency. I was like, I'm going to be my own boss. I'm going to do this like big thing and have this agency and I'm going to work with all these clients. And then, you know, the next thing you know, you're like 7 or 8 months down the line. I was having a really hard time scaling because I was juggling so many clients and working, you know, 12-hour days, 7 days a week, and realized like I wasn't my own boss. I had multiple bosses now, and I had so many like, you know, different people that I had to answer to, and was just dealing with like such ridiculous burnout and fatigue, and started to kind of look at my own personal health and what I could change. And within that is kind of how Tarot CBD was born, was, you know, deciding to really take a leap of faith and be my own boss and, you know, tie my entire, you know, life savings and earnings into sales in a very saturated market. And, you know, it's been a wild and crazy ride for the past like 6 months. I've had a lot of success, but I've also had a lot of days where I'm like, what am I doing? And I think, you know, that's just part of the journey. And, you know, I'm really excited to be able to take, you know, a moment to do something for myself. Is this going to be a forever thing? I'm not really sure. But it's really empowering to be my own boss, actually be my own boss and, you know, walk from my bedroom to my office every day and be like, well, I'm at work now. So I'm like happy to be here. I haven't put real pants on in a week.
The work from home, it's a hard thing. It's like you almost have to check yourself. Like, oh, girl, I am going to be a CEO. I'm going to make sure that I can put on the mindset of I'm working versus I'm at home. Like I've noticed, I mean, so you work from home right now, right?
I do.
Yeah.
I've tried working from coffee shops, but like I like to have multiple monitors. You know, I just like, you know, like to spread all of my things out. And so when I get to a coffee shop, I feel so confined on my laptop, like I'm not getting enough done because I can't see everything that I want to look at it, you know, at once.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Do you have like a morning routine when you get into your day? So you kind of block off that like, oh, I woke up and I'm going straight to work, or like, how do you kind of make that little jump so you don't have that burnout?
So I wake up pretty early, usually like around 6:30, when my partner is leaving and getting ready to go to work. And I actually like make a cup of tea and clean my house so that I have nothing else to distract me throughout the day. And usually like around 7:30 or 8 is when I start to like get into my morning routine. Between like 8 and 9 is when I syndicate all content and like respond to LinkedIn messages, respond to emails, post things for the day. So really try and like get all of the outward facing communication done as early in the morning so that I'm not distracted, so that I can work on like the day's task. I have been actually leaving the house at like noon or 2 every day to go to yoga or take my dog for a walk to just move my body, because now that I'm working, 10 feet from where I sleep, I feel like I'm sitting constantly. So that's been like a really big a helper in keeping my mental, state sane and kind of refocusing my energy for the afternoon.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I feel like we have to break it up and also batch. That has been, such a good way to focus and just like GSD it, get shit done. And
exactly.
Also, right. And then also working on like working from home. I know you probably have a team, but like if you're managing everything, you've got your dog, but it gets a little bit lonely, right? And like being able to probably just like get out of that that space for a minute, it probably gives you a new perspective when you're getting back after yoga.
Absolutely. And so just, I moved to Oklahoma City a year ago or almost a year ago from Seattle. And so I don't really have a community here like I did. And so I'm already isolated, and then you add working from home and like there's this extra level of isolation. So I've now become that person like at the grocery store that wants to talk to the Trader Joe's clerk for like 25 minutes because I'm like, be my human interaction for the day. So I have to leave my house and I have to go talk to people. And I'm just like adopting new strange behaviors that are like not, comfortable just talking to strangers because I'm, starved for attention.
Oh my God, yes. I feel you.
It's so funny.
I feel you. Like this move, it's been very interesting because there's so many new things, right? The environment's there is, for me, I don't have a community yet either. And like, yeah, and you work online, you work on building your business, but you have to get out. How is the entrepreneurship community in Oklahoma? Because I know it's like Oklahoma is just off the charts. Like when you just think about the industry in cannabis, right? Or well, cannabis and really, I guess, hemp. Like what's going on there?
Yeah. So, I mean, the cannabis community here is very excited about, medical cannabis, the plant, the industry. So it kind of reminds me of like medical California circa like 2010, where everybody's still like really involved and it's not so much a number budget raising game. It's more really about the excitement of the product and having access to it. So with that, I mean, there is an overabundance of growers, there's an overabundance of retailers, but there is, vertical integration here. So we're seeing, the ebbs and flows of the market and also the volatility of like the outdoor grow season here. I think a lot of people thought that they were going to be able to come here and just grow cannabis outdoors, but didn't really think about the environment and that it's, ridiculously hot in the summer, but can also monsoon rain. There's a ton of bugs. So they're really like fighting the elements. So we've seen a lot of transition in terms of the industry. It is an incredibly progressive state. It's not like what you think of when you think of Oklahoma. And I've met a lot of women who are, building businesses in and out of cannabis and really like making their niche. A couple of the girls that I'm becoming friends with or, building a community with are like independent photographers and run vintage stores and have, like one girl has this really great natural wellness shop, which you wouldn't really think of in Oklahoma, that carries like all of these Goop approved brands. And so it's, it's really trying to be a lot bigger than what people, think it is. And it's really nice. It was really nice to get here and realize that I'm, in the Bible Belt, but people are pushing out of that mentality.
Oh, that's nice. Well, especially coming from Seattle, I imagine that that would be a shock if it was just that mentality and people weren't kind of trying to get out of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's I mean I still get invited to a lot of church functions and which is totally great. Like I support, anybody's views, but it's just strange coming from Seattle where like I didn't talk to my neighbor that I lived next to for 5 years to get invited, to basically everything that my neighbors do.
Yeah, wow. I mean, it's community, I suppose, and just it just shows how different each of the states are in the United States.
Exactly.
Wow. So you decide to make this shift, right? So you're, you started the agency, you're like, you know what, I feel like I am, I'm everybody's kind of, you're working in client relations, like you almost feel like everybody is kind of your boss, and you're like, okay, no, I'm going to start something new. You make this shift, you make this decision to make the shift. Walk us through, like, was it Oklahoma that brought you, like, what brought you to Oklahoma, and what brought you to discover CBD instead of THC? Like, how did Tarot CBD evolve?
Absolutely. So what brought me to Oklahoma is my partner was part of a grow in Washington, and they bought licenses here for a processing facility and a chain of retail stores. So at the time I was working, independently at my agency, and was ready for a change and ready to get out of Seattle. And so when this opportunity arose, we're just like, well, let's go, let's see what it is. Let's give it, a year and a half. And so, we got to Oklahoma, and as I got here, it was just kind of, a complete switch of being so busy and, having to hustle so hard to afford to live in Seattle and to keep up with that energy, and getting here and realizing like how simple and easy my life could be, and how, I could offload stress and still financially be okay, was kind of like a shock to the system almost. Like, I went from working so much to getting here and having a much slower pace of life, and really appreciated that. And so with that, I actually worked for his company for a few months doing all of the retail buying and inventory, and got to understand the market here. And a big piece of that was buying and looking at all of the CBD products. And so really on that path and on my own wellness journey is when I decided to kind of switch from the THC side to the CBD side. There's also the ease in marketing CBD versus THC. So really wanted to challenge myself to kind of create a national brand versus having to do a state by state growth plan.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, and it's just, because this is actually Farm Bill's already passed, like you don't have to worry about 280E. You don't have so many of the barriers that cannabis businesses face. It makes sense.
Exactly. And so with that, I just kind of wanted to exploit my own skills and my own strengths and see if I could, make something in a saturated space like CBD. And like I said, there's some days where things are going really well, and other days where I'm like, how did that even happen? Or I've been building this whole campaign and now it's being shut down. And so I'm still running into those issues, but it's, fewer and far between than THC.
Well, yeah. And I think that like one of your major wins this year was that your product is now on Saks Fifth Avenue's CBD Beauty Corner. Am I correct?
Yes. And that was just like a fluke of talking to the right person on Instagram of all places. I do a ton of business, like conversations on Instagram, in direct messages, and, being able to just schedule a call with them and walk them through the products and walk them through why I started the company. And it's been a really beneficial partnership. I'm really excited to be there. And it's also, builds a lot of trust in the brand when you start to have these larger retailers buy into what you're doing.
Oh, absolutely. And it also just gives you that pat on the back, like that I think sometimes we just need, like, that's a big win. I think a lot of businesses, hope to get there someday, and you were able to get there in a year. That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, especially because, one of the biggest challenges that you mentioned was, how do you continue to kind of build a unique and consistent brand story in such a saturated market, right? And, first and foremost, like your background is in marketing, it's in branding. For you, could you break down just so people can understand that are listening, like what does it mean to build a brand?
Oh, that's such a big question. I mean, for me, it's about aligning all of the messaging to be consistent and believing in what you're doing. So, there's a lot of brands out there, and a lot of CBD brands especially, that are pretty soulless in terms of like you can tell it was built for profit. And so I look at those and I think like, you can be the biggest or the best, but you can't be both. And so those are like the biggest bunch. And I want to be part of the best bunch. And so with that, when I look at my branding and when I look at what I'm doing across social media and the conversations I'm having like this, it's always, really educating people on CBD, and it's educating them on my products, and it's, using my products, and not just selling to sell.
Mm-hmm.
So, building a brand, it can be done so many different ways, but building a brand for me is really personal. And I've, put a lot of my own personal health and story into it, because I want people to understand that they can make a shift, and can explore natural remedies like CBD and herbal supplements.
Well, and when you go to your website, I think it's really interesting. I'm curious, like how the tarot, kind of what the evolution is there, but you can see that everything does feel consistent, and there is so much. I'm almost like, let me go back to your website. There's like so much love in this interesting way built around the website itself. And then what I find interesting, and I'm curious how you made this decision, is like, yes, we hear there's an about section of your website, but you aren't the brand. And what made you decide to, build a brand independent of yourself, but you are also kind of the CEO behind this, and you are telling your story? Like, how did you make that decision to build a brand, not necessarily building a brand off you?
Yeah, I think that there is a lot of people who need to believe in something other than what is handed to them. And I'm saying that in terms of like Western medicine and understanding that there's, different approaches to healing and health and wellness. And so telling my story within that, there's, a bigger conversation, I think, for everybody to take a look at what they're putting into their body every day, and then decide, do I want to continue down this path, or do I want to try something new and see if this works better for me, or see if it replaces something that I'm currently using? And like it says on my website, like at the time that I was, kind of conjuring up tarot, I was, on Adderall. I was taking Xanax every day to go to sleep. I was suffering from like horrible depression and panic attacks, like just kind of hit, a wall, and had a conversation with myself about like, what are these drugs going to do to me in 40 years? Like, really, we don't know. And that to me was terrifying, especially because like Alzheimer's runs in my family. So I was just kind of like, I can't be continuing to be dependent on something when I don't understand its long-term effects. And so decided to switch. And, I'm hoping by sharing my story, I'm empowering other people to kind of look and make a decision about what they're putting into their body.
Yeah. I think it's incredible that I read it on your website. Now you're not on any of those, right? So like you made the shift to CBD, and it's really helped with your sleep and with your stress levels and all of that.
Absolutely. I still do use THC regularly throughout the day. I also microdose mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, quarterly for about a month at a time. So I'll take low doses for about 30 days to just kind of keep the depression at bay. I know that depression is something that I am just genetically, unfortunately, going to deal with for the rest of my life. So, using all of these plant-based medicines has helped me. I'm not a doctor, and I can't say like everybody should quit everything that they're doing and change over and this is going to work for you. But I can say like trying something different is not a bad idea. Consult your physician first, and see where you can go and see what you can do and see how you can access parts of your brain that maybe have been dulled by different drugs and interactions.
Yeah. Or even just like the food that we're eating. It's just so interesting.
Yeah.
I'm trying to go on a full plant-based diet, and I had a cheat day and had some chicken a while ago, and I noticed the difference of, what that actually does. And it's just so interesting of, how getting back to just like the holistic, non-processed, just like from the earth type of remedies, food and medicine, what that can do to our mindset.
Absolutely. And, the funny thing about moving to Oklahoma is right before I got here, there was an article that I read, and Oklahoma is a food desert. And so what that means is that it takes a really long time for like fresh fruit and vegetables to get here. And so by the time it gets here, the expiration date is like, I buy lettuce and like 3 days later it's moldy. And so right now I'm actually in the process of just building like a huge garden in my backyard, because I'm like, I can't actually get access to the things that I want to eat. So for the first year here, I have not been doing my body any like due diligence. I've just been eating whatever I can in terms of just getting sustenance, and haven't been able to access, what I'm used to. So I definitely feel the difference now that I'm starting to incorporate all of my own vegetables. Yeah. And I'm excited, to have a project that gets me outside.
Oh yeah. Well, and that, what's so interesting is I remember listening to a podcast from the mayor of Oklahoma City about how that city used to be one of the most obese cities that there are, and how over the course of several years, they kind of redesigned the city into making it much more of a fit city. But that's interesting. So much of the dialogue between, health and wellness, a lot of times, food companies want you to think that it's all about moving, right? But I mean, it's so much about nutrition. And so that is so fascinating to hear that it's a food desert, and that just getting basic access to some of the nutrients is hard. Like it's mind-boggling, actually.
I have to go to like 3 different grocery stores to do my grocery shopping every week. It's crazy.
Oh my God, that seems like that's got to be an interesting opportunity for somebody to build a.
Yeah.
I wanted to invite all of you listeners to join Cannabis Business Minds online. It's an opportunity for you to be able to list your business and list your services all for free. I believe that we're better together, and it's the time now to make sure that you are getting your business out there. So please join cannabisbusinessminds.com. You can create your free profile and list your products and your services, and connect with myself and a lot of the guests that we have on the show.
Integrated like greenhouse to grow vegetables and figure out a delivery system, but maybe it's just not, maybe somebody is focusing on that, and hopefully it will happen. But that's really, really incredible. Wow. Thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. Of course. The fun facts of Oklahoma.
The fun facts of Oklahoma. Wow. You learn something new every day. Well, I want to, before we dive into advertising and marketing, I did want to understand, what about tarot? Like, why that name? Is that part of the brand strategy and your story? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So I am like a firm believer in everything happens for a reason, and like following signs and numerology, and really paying attention to like my outside environment. I'm an introvert by nature, so I'm always kind of observing everything that's happening. And so for me, using tarot, using astrology has been something that I've done for years. And so really, when you think about tarot and you think about following the signs, you can almost like interpret that into your body and following the signs of like what it is that you need. And so in my mind, they, have, amazing synergy in between like health and actually following the signs and paying attention to your surroundings.
Oh yeah. I'm a huge tarot fan, and I just love just even how you've created these different experiences on your like content related to tarot, and it just seemed very holistic. So it's just so great, because also you're definitely attracting maybe that person who believes in tarot who still doesn't know about CBD, right? So there's that mix where you're not just focused on targeting, and that seems like that's something that you've always been able to do, because one of the things that caught my attention, this was like back in 2017 in your old job with Wiki, where you were able to kind of pitch a new way of advertising to get cannabis kind of advertised in the sky. And it just seems like, has your mentality been, let's not just talk about cannabis, let's not just talk about CBD when you think about advertising these types of products?
Absolutely. I think that there's part brand and there's part marketing in everything that I do. And so when I say that, it's, I created CBD hair care because not only is it great for your scalp and it reduces inflammation, and it, helps with dandruff and strengthens your strands, but also there wasn't a lot of people creating shampoo and conditioner. And so from a marketing standpoint, that's great for SEO, that's great for building content, that's great for PR. And so everything that I do kind of, spins into, well, how can I market this? And so with that Wiki ad, it was, okay, well, they're not going to let me just advertise like find cannabis when you land. So how can we, have a conversation in flight that, showcases cannabis, but also plays by their rules. And so, the whole message with that was a PSA around, please don't fly with cannabis, find it when you land. And you're just changing like small words. You can really create a niche in anything that you're trying to do and anything that you're trying to market.
Oh, I want to underscore that because that's so important, especially today when there's so much saturation in everything we do, from just like looking at our inbox and seeing all of the different like newsletters that we're getting, and even wanting to go somewhere. And I think about intent-based searching and how what is somebody going to do to find you if they don't know that you exist, right? Like there's so many websites. I read the statistic, it's crazy. There's one blog post for every 8 individuals in the world.
That's crazy.
That's so crazy. That is insane, right? And so for me, it just like, it's mind blowing because I talk to so many people. They're like, oh, I'm building a business. I'm going to reach this many sales goals. And for me, there's such a direct link between sales and marketing. Like you have to have both those. And then behind both of those, you have brand, right? And so when I hear people that are trying to pitch investors or trying to imagine that they're going to get a huge sales goal, accomplish a huge sales goal for the year, yet they don't know how they're going to get there. And they just think, oh, well, if I just blog. No, there's so much more than doing that. And I think it's so critical what you just said is like, you always have to be thinking about marketing and thinking about SEO, which in cannabis is very hard though.
It is. I mean, you have limited places to put your content and to, get it recognized. And what you're saying about marketing and sales, I actually spend 70% of my time on sales and business development and only 30% on marketing. And that's because like right now I'm trying to generate revenue in order to create more content. Yeah. And so really, coming in as like wanting to be a fast growth, like quick startup is I have to then spend all of my time doing something that isn't my background. But within that, I'm taking the things that I've built for marketing and being able to share it with the people that I'm trying to sell to. So it's, it's this little ecosystem that people don't always realize. And I would always preach this when I was at Wikileaf is like sales and marketing need to have conversations and they need to have them constantly because whatever marketing is doing is going to help sales and whatever sales is doing is going to help marketing.
Oh, 100%. And how did you decide to do that percentage shift, right? Like how was it kind of trial and error? What made you kind of know those numbers?
Honestly, I've self-funded this entire business and I'm still self-funding it. And so for me, it's looking at runway and it's, setting, very intentional goals in order to maintain growth. And so understanding my output and then saying like, okay, here's the amount of time that needs to be spent on sales, given, the close rate on deals or conversations that I've had. So it's really just been like a trial and error and learning process.
Yeah. Well, and what I like is that it all goes back to numbers, right? So what your operating costs are, how much money you have left in the bank, how long it takes to convert a lead to a sale and probably then to collect. So that's great. It's interesting because I've been focused a lot more on marketing and not so much sales. It's interesting, two interesting things, I guess. So you are selling direct to consumer, but you're also, right, because you have an e-commerce site. Yeah. You're also getting into retail outlets like Saps. So your sales is probably, are you spending it like split between B2B and B2C, or are you just focused on B2B?
So the 70% is usually focused on B2B and business development, like publication outreach. I also have a publicist that I work with, which is super helpful. The 30%, I would say, when you're looking at marketing is really about that B2C marketing. And so like you were talking about email, we're talking about social. I'm actually making a shift from email, which is crazy because I have been like the biggest believer in email marketing, but just feel like we've hit a saturation level where people are looking at emails like less and less and less. And I'm going to try and go to a text-based marketing system and see how that works, and see if I can penetrate, more consumers via text message. And so we'll see how that goes. It's launching next week. There's also, a piece to that that's leveraging other people's communities. So I have an affiliate program that I run where I give everybody, one product free a month, but they have, goals and tasks that they have to, unlock to continue to get that free product. And that's been very successful. And then also, leveraging other people's communities. So like next week, I'm also launching a campaign where I spoke to 30 women about what wellness is to them, because I think the term wellness is so overused. And it's just like this idea that we can all live Jennifer Aniston's lifestyle somehow. And so, really just like leveraging their communities, building content to share on that platform to reach, consumers that I would have never been able to reach or would have never even thought to reach. So, it's a big mix of, sales, marketing, but marketing for me is the sales for B2C or direct to consumer.
Yeah, I mean, that makes so much sense. And thank you for kind of splitting that out. Where do you see advertising falling into all of this, right? Because it's a component of marketing. And I guess where I kind of want to go is a lot of cannabis businesses, and it seems like CBD, it's interesting. You seem like you have kind of a challenge getting into kind of Facebook advertising with Tarot. Are, a lot of them are like, oh my God, I just don't know how to market. I just don't know how to advertise my product, right? And where do you think, are you seeing any current trends that are happening right now in cannabis and CBD advertising?
I mean, I think right now we're seeing a lot of the Facebook advertising for well-budgeted CBD companies. And what they're doing is they're using a workaround where they're taking, an ad that doesn't necessarily portray their product unless it's atypical, and putting it to a landing page, and that landing page connects to their website. But, from the back end of that, I've helped a couple of clients previously set that up, and their cost per acquisition is actually incredibly high. So if you don't have a huge marketing budget, that is not the way to go. If you do decide to go that way, I would say don't focus on conversion and focus solely on some type of hook to get more of their information. So an email, a phone number, some way they then continue to remarket to that person. And so one of the ways that I do that is that I give away a tincture every week. So I run paid ads through like secondary networks like Outbrain. They do not convert, but they do convert an email. So, my email pop-up is like, win a free tincture once a week. Like, I will give this to you. And that's a really easy way to get a lot of traffic, get their email address, and then continue to have a conversation with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it just shows how complicated the funnel could be, right? Like it's not, I think so many people are like, oh, I'm just going to advertise. I'm going to make all this in sales. Well, no, you're just getting, if you're advertising, you're getting them to click somewhere, or like you said, kind of capturing email, but then how we were even talking about, and I agree with you so much, Kate, like I think that email marketing is hit an oversaturation point. I get so many emails every day. I don't even click them. And I think you're quite wise for kind of making that shift. But it's a very long process to, when you think about marketing, someone's not just going to buy straight away. Like you are engaging in this conversation.
Yeah, it takes like 7 or 8 different, engagements coming from different places in order for people to purchase. And so, the loop of sales is slow. And so when you're a new business and you're starting up and you're funding it yourself, you're kind of, my patience gets a little thin sometimes because I'm like, I'm doing all of these things and you don't see the return, but you also have to understand that it takes time for people to trust your brand. So, for me, that's like, I have to remind myself that every day, like, be patient. things are growing. Like, this will happen.
Right? It's especially, I'm not sure if you're a type A personality or not, but I am sometimes, I think, my own worst boss because I set these really incredible deadlines and goals and I will work to achieve them. And, some of this stuff, like, especially in cannabis, is unprecedented. Like sometimes we are the ones that are trailblazing, and there are so many different hurdles that happen. And I think maintaining kind of, the progress, not perfection mentality, and living each day like, okay, well, what am I going to do today? That seems like it's the way to sanity.
Yes. I write down on a whiteboard, like my overarching goals for the week. And then every day I have a to-do list. And so it kind of keeps me on track, but also doesn't keep me cemented in a deadline. Yeah. I'm a natural procrastinator. Like it is just something that I wish I could, I wish I could change it about myself, but I just can't. So I have to like work under pressure. Yeah. And so at least setting like small goals for myself for the week, and then giving myself like a small to-do list, because I used to take a to-do list and write down like 40 things. Yeah. And then I would just get so overwhelmed by looking at it that I would, start vacuuming at 11 o'clock instead of, doing what I'm supposed to be doing, because I just can't even fathom starting a task. And so now I'm like, I'm writing down 2 things in the morning. And if I get those 2 things done, like I am so excited and happy with myself. Like, this is great. Like, yes. I achieved something today.
It's the small wins, because I think like it's all about project management, right? Because you still have to do 40 tasks, but you've now kind of like prioritized, like these are the 2 that are like definitely the most important. They're what's going to help my business grow, whatever you do to prioritize. And then you feel the reward when you do it, versus like just, wanting to be like an ostrich with your head in the sand otherwise.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And having the agency prior to doing this, I have a lot of contacts and a lot of really great freelance help. And so I also know like my strengths and weaknesses. Like I graduated college kind of pre-digital marketing era. So, traditional digital marketing, like digging into Google Analytics and understanding, all of the different pieces of that is not something that I am super familiar with. Like I am more content marketing, social marketing focused. And so really being able to like understand my own strengths and weaknesses and then hire out the help has been absolutely like beneficial in terms of like achieving goals and getting things done.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because like, if you think about it, like if you're not good at something and it's going to take you 5 hours to do this task, well, you have to associate those 5 hours. If I'm paying somebody, whatever, $20 an hour, I have 5 hours to generate a sale. Right. And that sale is going to be way more than that cost.
Exactly.
Yeah. I want to talk, before we get into the speed round, just quickly about mindset and mentality. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I just loved with what you said was just like, in marketing and cannabis, you often hear no many more times than you hear yes. And no. And what you said was, I believe that no is negotiable. How did you get that mentality? I think it's so important for people to realize that no is not no.
Yeah. I think that really comes from like my personal upbringing and how I was raised, to be honest with you. Like, I don't really have a, how do I put this the right way? I don't really have a safety net. So for me, like, no is not negotiable. No is like, okay, well, I have to find another way because I have to survive. And so for me, when I hear no, I'm like, that's great, but I still have to do this because I don't have another option. And so it's all about really survival and then continuing to grow and making sure that I'm taking care of myself. And so that's really, a product of how I was brought up and the atmosphere that I come from. And it's been, also kind of a hurdle for me because I have to let some of that go too. Like I have to realize now I'm at a point in my career where I don't need to be so scrappy and that I can actually take time and be thoughtful with my decisions, and that no can actually mean no to me now, and I don't have to push so hard. So, there's an ebb and a flow, and I can be my own worst enemy in that regard.
Well, I like it though, because I see both sides of it. And I think that when you're in sales, I think that people often feel very discouraged if they hear no. And I've always thought, well, it's not right now. Right. And so I think that, finding the way to convert a no to a yes, that I think is that's tact and tactics, right? And like, it might not happen overnight, and it might not happen for a year, or it might not happen ever, or it might happen like when you just ask somebody, well, why did you say no? Did you do you have any kind of insight, or can you share your strategy? Like if somebody says no to you, do you, what's your first kind of way in the negotiation?
I mean, it depends on the size of the company. So like if somebody says no to me, there's somebody else I can talk to at that company that's possibly going to say yes. Mm-hmm. Or if they do say no, then I ask people why. And it's really funny when you ask people why after they say no, like their reaction, because they're not used to that. And so they have to come up with, an argument on the spot. And I've already got a counter, figured out based off of, a few different options of what they're going to tell me. So it's really, either I'm looking for somebody else to talk to, or I'm asking them like, literally, why did you say no? Or why is this not going to work for you? Let's find a solution. And then, walking them through so many solutions, basically either until you wear them down or until you do have to find somebody else to talk to. So
yes. Oh, I love it. I love it.
I'm that annoying person.
No, you are persistent. That is great.
Yes.
All right. So are you ready for the speed round?
Yeah.
Woo-hoo. All right. What are the top 3 guiding principles in your business?
Oh, honesty, transparency, and work ethic.
Yes. I love all 3 of those. What scares you the most about growing your business?
Failing. Yeah. I'm like, just, not succeeding in something that I'm doing and actually being told no, but not necessarily no directly from a person, but no from the universe.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because as entrepreneurs, we should be failing all the time, but I think it's like how we act, right? So it's like, we have fails every day, but I think, reminding ourselves that fail, maybe that's a new lesson or a bigger opportunity, but I think that everybody's with you on that one. I definitely am. All right. Last, but certainly not least, what part of being an entrepreneur excites you the most?
Waking up every day and making a decision, and it being my decision and not having to go through, the democracy of an office, or which makes me sound really like stubborn and one-minded. Like I will take people's feedback, but to switch from email to text message marketing, like I got to make that decision. And that feels really good. And so really being able to make pivotal decisions that change the future of my business is super exciting.
Yes. All right. Well, Kate, thank you so much for joining. How can people find out about you? Where can they connect with you? Could you tell us a little bit about that before we end?
Absolutely. You can always find me on LinkedIn. It's Kate Manson. You can find me on Instagram at tarotcbd.com, or you can find Tarot at Tarot CBD, or it was at Tarot CBD and at tarotcbd.com. Sorry, tongue twister.
It is a tongue twister, but easy to find. Definitely a good URL.
Yes. tarotcbd.com.
Perfect. Well, let me just end the recording. All right, let me stop the recording. Do you want to stop?
Thank you for listening to today's show. This is your host, Simone Samaluka-Radzins of Kalagia.com. I hope that you find this episode entertaining and insightful. My goal is to educate all of you about this exciting business because knowledge is power. If you haven't already, head on over to Kalagia.com to connect with me and to meet other business leaders in the professional cannabis community. Also, if you like this, please go into iTunes and leave the Cannabis Business Minds podcast a 5-star review. See you next episode.